Welcome, 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 welcome. We're going to give folks a minute to get in here with just a little bit of music on this Holy Week. I love the energy of this week, and so I want to just put on a little music before I introduce myself and us. We're going to talk about today. You're just now joining, and you know are meeting me for the first time. I'm Latanya Taylor, affectionately known as the Rev Coach, the Juicy Spirit Mama, the Priestess of Purpose, Pleasure, Passion, and Profits. And today we're talking about the hidden powers of the feminine, Easter, and you. So let's give folks a chance to get in the room. And I'm going to show you a clip at the top today. Come on in the room. Turn it up just in case. Welcome, welcome, welcome. All right. Can you all hear the music? Hear it? Awaken to your powers. She's saying, awaken to your powers. Thank you. Welcome, honey. Welcome. Can you hear the music? Can't hear it. So I'm over here moving all by myself. Okay, so I'm gonna stop the music since it's no fun if if I'm over here grooving by myself and you can't hear it. So I'm gonna figure that technicality out because music is such an important part of everything that I do. Especially when you work with me, you get a chance to know and to experience that. So I want to show you a clip at the top, and I know you'll be able to see this, or at least I hope you'll be able to see this. And I am going to check back today to make sure that you can see what I'm sharing today. Okay. So I want you to check this out as we look at some of the hidden powers of Easter feminine archetypes and your power, because I want to say at the top for those who are here and those who will watch the replay, this is not just woo woo. While Wednesdays and the time that I spend in our tribe is a form of ministry for me, my invitation to you is to your own marketplace ministry, mission, contribution. I want to present how you can use the woo woo for your wealth, your abundance, your prosperity by choice, not by default, not by force. Because many of us still have a force filled relationship with the divine, where that is the only time we seek out divine communication or pay attention to symbols that are around us every day. And so a lot of times when you become unchurched, one of the things that you do is you forsake all those things that no longer apply to you, instead of saying, wait a minute, this is in my system, this is in my GPS, how can I use it to serve me, or is it serving me, or how has that influenced my mindset, my psychology, as it relates to the goal that I have in my life right now. even though I am talking about business and money and business owners and entrepreneurship, this applies to the feminine because in the West, we have been taught to compartmentalize our femininity for either sex and sexuality, or we compartmentalize it for our relationships. So if you are a wife, a mother, a sister, or you are leading voice or influence in your family, whether it be something you asked for or something you didn't, the context of this discussion that we've been having around sacred contracts and archetypes are not just for feel good, get a good shout, yeah, Rev, go ahead, Ia, go, whatever you call me, whatever you call this, or go ahead, sister. That's not this. This is a detailed explanation every week that we've been doing this feminine abundance series. In the last 4 weeks has been an invitation for you to understand the value of investing in this particular workshop, but investing in the study. The Divine Design Workshop that I have created for you is a working session for you to be able to use this. Why, Latanya? So glad you asked. Before I show you this clip, it has changed my life because all of us have stories and experiences that have imprinted us. First of all, we come here with a blueprint. And we are not often taught that blueprint. We stumble on it. We hear about it. And depending on your religious upbringing, you may be told to forsake it, that it's forbidden. But when you say, dang, but that sounds like me, so I've had people who say, I don't believe in astrology. I don't believe in anything, honey, but the Bible. But the Bible is full of archetypes and contracts and agreements. But how are contracts and agreements serving you if you are not conscious of them? And how do you want the contracts and agreements to serve you? Because it can serve you to renegotiate them or to end them altogether. Because sometimes in our psychology, we are operating on symbols and codes and things that we are not aware of because a lot of that has been intentional. I said this in a post, we go to elementary school, but we don't learn the elements. We've been told that the elements are something, again, to be forbidden and that type of thing. But now, as many of you are taking on your health and your wellness, you are learning more about herbs. But why was that ever an amnesia for us as a people when we are the medicine men and the medicine women in our tribes? Why is that now something that we are stumbling on? And so everybody in the culture wanted to have sea moss to boost the immune system and vitamin C. Again, it is crisis consciousness when it comes to the things that we need. We beg for what we need, bargain for what we want, but when it comes to something that we are sold through marketing, through branding, and we got to understand that marketing and branding of illness, the marketing and branding of our relationship with money, the marketing and branding of our relationship with ourselves is very intentional, because it is not that we're necessarily picking cotton anymore in a field, but many of us still have a slave mentality when it comes to setting ourselves free. We're waiting for someone to come, and you are the one that can set yourself free. And so oftentimes when it comes to this conversation around business, money, banking, and all of the things that are happening in the culture where we need to get our business in order, all the blind spots can happen, and you bump into things. Y'all with me? I'm trying to set this thing up for you to understand this is not just woo-woo, feel good Wednesday, womanhood Wednesday. We're not just over here tribe talking. We are talking to shift the consciousness of our relationship with our business and the things that we need to get in order. Why? Because we are going to need each other in a way in the coming months where you're going to need my archetype. I'm going to need yours. There are going to be strengths and weaknesses, threats and opportunities for us in so many ways. What is going to happen when you don't have your ATM card? What is going to happen when you can't go to just that job? You've already experienced it. Your president said recently, oh, there's going to be a second pandemic. And are y'all okay with that? The other thing about studying these contracts and agreements, when you start to renegotiate your relationship with them on purpose, and you begin to open the space for more discernment, for more clarity around how you are going to move in the next way. Now I want to go a little lighter. I want to use the American Gods, a clip from the American Gods. Now this is a decoder. Okay, I want to preface that by saying this is a decoder. A decoder looks at movies and storylines and tells you about plays that we may not necessarily pay attention to. And I do want, and we'll probably use American Gods again. So I do encourage you to watch the first season if you haven't. It's full of spiritual codes, symbols, archetypes, all types of things that are actually happening in the culture right now. Okay. Good. My sister says, I'm not okay with any of the lies and fear tactics presented to us. Okay, I'm going to capture your comment in just a minute. Check this out. I want to make sure you can see my screen. Give me a yes, yes, if you can see it. Yes, yes. Can you see the screen? Let me know. Want to make sure before we get into the meat of this today. Good. Thank you for the confirmation. All right, check this out.
Season 3, Episode 2, titled Serious Moonlight, which of course is a reference to Shadow Moon, and also a lyric from David Bowie's song Let's Dance and its associated tour. This episode was a bit more intriguing for me than the first episode of Season 3. There was a lot going on here, and a lot of interesting references to mythology and folklore, as well as Easter eggs and hints toward things we might see in the coming season. So without further ado, let's get to that.
When the great river gave birth to the first ones, they asked in Emehiwak, the Thunderbird, to watch over our people.
After the recap of last episode, the show starts out in the Wisconsin Territory in 1690. We hear the voice of what is likely a tribal elder recounting a creation story of this particular people. He says when the Great River, Mississippi, which means Great River originally in the Anishinaabe languages, gave birth to the first ones, they asked in Emehiwak, the Thunderbird, to watch over them. In the last episode, Whiskey Jack, aka Wisaki Jack, referred to the Thunderbirds as Enamaki, but actually in the Algonquin languages, there are several ways to say it, including Enamaki or Enamehiwak. Although I probably mispronounced both, but you get the gist. The Thunderbird is actually a symbol of the Anishinaabe people. The term Anishinaabe refers to several native nations, including the Ojibwe, Oji-Cree, and Algonquin peoples, among others. In the last episode, an Easter egg I missed was that when Shadow drives through Minnesota on the animated map, the lightning and thunder of the Thunderbird flashed, and the Viking statue Shadow was actually the symbol of the Thunderbird. The Elder also says the Thunderbird battles Mishikanubik, the horned serpent, which is the traditional enemy of the Thunderbird in mythology. This also might be the form Wisaki Jack was taking in the previous episode. Through this opening sequence, we can see several passing shadows, which are likely Thunderbirds overhead. Then the camera pulls back to reveal that this village has been attacked by, quote, traders. On IMDb, these two are listed as French trader and German trader. One of them speaks French, and the other speaks, I assume, German, although it sounds like he also speaks Old Norse, or possibly Old High German, I'm not sure. These two traders have slaughtered almost everyone in the village, but a bad storm is on its way. Likely this was summoned by this tribal elder, who called on the Enamehiwak to help them. Thunderbirds are thought to cause storms, as their wings create the thunder, but this German trader, as a way of fighting the Native American gods, calls on one of his own gods, an old Germanic god, who he calls Hodekin, the Dark One, to basically call away the bad weather, and in fact he sacrifices this poor girl to this god. Hodekin is the name of a kobold in German folklore. Kobolds are basically elf-like house sprites or spirits associated with a certain area. However, he calls Hodekin the Dark One, which makes me suspect that he's actually associating the name Hodekin with the Norse and Germanic god Hoder, or Hoder, to use the Old Norse pronunciation. There is no evidence I could find that Hodekin is associated with Hoder, or Hodekin originates from Hoder, although generally speaking, a lot of folklore figures are thought to be adapted from older gods, like Mad Sweeney, who was once the Irish god Lugh, but later became a leprechaun. I suspect they're attempting to do the same thing with Hodekin the kobold here. Also, there's another detail regarding the kobold that I will get to at the end of the video because it's sort of a spoiler. Hoder is thought to be the Norse god of darkness. He is blind and is also associated with winter, as winter is the darkest season. As we can see in this scene, it is winter. He also references Thor's hammer, saying the hammer flies across the sky. This also supports that Hodekin is from the Old Norse or Old Germanic pantheon, and likely Hoder. But I could be wrong that there is any connection to Hoder. Because they told us this is Wisconsin, I have to suspect that this area is what would later become Lakeside, and we're essentially witnessing the birth of Lakeside here. In the last episode, when Wisake Jack referred to Wednesday being complicit in the erasing of his history, I thought he was referring to the Old Norse exploration of America, but now it seems more likely he's referring to this. Picking up from the previous episode, we find out that the person who put the gun to the back of Shadow's head is in fact Marguerite Olson, a journalist for the local paper and also the property manager of this building, apparently. Marguerite does eventually let him in, although she's kind of a jerk about it. That's likely because she's suspicious of strangers due to her missing son, based on a few clues I'll get to later. Once inside, Shadow goes to sleep and dreams of his childhood. He is holding his mother's hand in a supermarket or store, turns to one of the magazines, Explorer, and this woman starts to talk to him, saying, "We have waited for you, and much is required of you." The actress on this cover is Bridget Ogundipe.
Okay, I want to stop here on "much is required of you." I want to shift a little bit. We'll come back to this later. Okay, all right. Okay, so let's just jump right into this. I am showing you in movies how nothing just happens. There's a lot of research done a lot of times on what is presented to the general population. One of the last strongholds in mind control and influence are two things: the banking industry, financial industries, and in entertainment or media. And this is how you can control a population in terms of messaging that you put out. Now, if you are a metaphysician, if you are a spiritualist, you'll watch something like this and see things in things like American Gods. Now, there's some other ones that I could throw out, some the popular one that did not come back. It was so well produced. It has so many symbols in it. Oh my goodness. It was produced by a Black woman. It was a multi-million-dollar production budget. If anybody can help me remember, it's an occult science. It's a book from the occult sciences. Oh my God. It's Jonathan. Somebody is one of the main actors, and oh God, help me with the name of it. That one, when you Lovecraft Country. Lovecraft Country, and this series, American Gods, is loaded with so many symbols. Lovecraft Country, and it's based off of people who have studied the occult. Now, okay, so if you are a Christian or you are still very far removed from this type of thing or been taught to fear it, let me do a disclaimer. Do not fear it. Even in English classes, and I loved English lit. I used to be an English lit teacher. It's one of my favorite subjects to teach. But when I was a student, I love sitting down and writing and breaking down the three parts of a story. So when I stepped into media and entertainment and got mentored by the brother that you always see me shout out, my dear brother Robert, he really awakened in me this love for story and structure. But of course, when you go to school, you're taught to have certain filters or to learn things in a certain way. We're not taught to decode, not even our own lives. And the workshop that I'm inviting you to is one of the first exercises we're going to do is to decode some of the codes that's right there in front of you. I'm going to show you how. But the title of this one has a lot to do with Easter. And you saw on the cover, he kept going in and out of worlds, the dream world, then a futuristic world, and his current world. And every one of those worlds, he was meeting pieces of himself or pieces of his story. I want to propose to you, my sisters, that you are always meeting pieces of yourself or pieces of your story. And when we think of the dream world, I want you to think of your spiritual gifts. So when we look at Easter, one of my favorite topics during this week, this is considered Holy Week. When I lived in Costa Rica, which is primarily Catholic, most Latin countries are primarily Catholic. During Holy Week, you don't do anything. You don't do a lot. It's a sacred week. It's not just spring break. It's not for lasciviousness like it has become in America. In Latin countries, Holy Week, you're either going to church, you're meeting with family. Now, there is a period of time where during that Holy Week, you go to the beach. It's a huge day for locals to go to the beach, but it's the focus is family time. I learned how sacred Holy Week was. Even though I grew up Catholic, we did not hold it in the same way. And well, I should say this, I grew up Catholic and a little touch of Baptist because I was religiously multilingual very early in life. Well, I would say religiously bilingual because I would go to Catholic church in the early morning service, go home with my godmother, and then go around the corner to church with my mother who had a later service. So that taught me how to be bilingual very early because I would go from one world that was very quiet and very contained into another world that was very expressive. And so, and where I didn't know it then, but I could feel my ancestors when the deacons would do their moaning and their crying, you know, I know the Lord, he heard my cry. Y'all know that? Y'all know, you ever heard that? Come on now. Come on, Southerners that's in the comments. You know anything about that? Came up, and if you hadn't had a deacon moan, but all of those things came from other ancient sciences and practices. So even when we talk about the Germanic and all of these references of these mystical beings, instead of just dismissing them, what I'm saying is, where did they come from? What does that have to do with you? So glad that you asked. This time period that we're in, now we're coming up on a full moon this weekend. Yes, yes. For those of you who are in business, this is also the second quarter. Where are you mentally? Where are you emotionally? What are you focused on? Has anybody even taught you about leveraging this time, which is the real new year, the same way you do at the last week of December when you start thinking about the year that has passed on the Gregorian calendar? What about this time, and why has the calendar been changed? We won't get into this. I'm just going to throw out some why questions for just to prick our consciousness. Why has the calendar been changed? And why and how does it throw off our circadian rhythm? We're already working on a rhythm that throws off our circadian pattern of sleep and communication and prayer, which allows us to tap in. But when we have been so programmed by institutions, we oftentimes are so off of a natural rhythm of being, of communicating, of documenting, of planning. And this is the time of the spring equinox. No matter how you slice it and dice it, whatever religion we're in fact, we're in a unique time that's so powerful and so potent because the three religions are celebrating during this time, which is also typically rare. Right now, Ramadan is happening. Passover just happened, or this is Passover for those who are in the traditional Hebrewic religion. This is also Holy Week for Christians and Passover leading up to Good Friday. Now, no matter what you believe, if you have disassociated yourself from it, that means that the energy on the planet is extremely high and powerful for you to tap into it and plug in your cord to manifest the rest of this year, the desires of your heart, your vision, and your business, because this is the true new year. Now, what does that have to do with the feminine? So glad that you asked. The woman has been hidden, particularly the melanated woman has been hidden in all of those three religions. So this workshop, these conversations that we're having, and many of you send me letters or notes that are like letters. Some of you all send me love offerings because you hear this and something wakes up inside of you because you were already designed to be awakened to it. There's a purpose and a calling for you to even be in a session like this. Even if it's casual, even if you are here for free, even if you are, especially if you are a brother who comes in to this pretty much woman-centric space to receive. There's a purpose for you too. So how are you leveraging this season rather than saying, I no longer participate in those traditional holidays like I did when I became Muslim years ago, like I did when I moved more into my moved from being in any religion and moved into my freedom. I didn't see the opportunity to ritual. I didn't see the opportunity for me to plug in to the potency of the season. Are y'all with me? You feel me today? So here we see the spring equinox that happens around this time, right around after Mardi Gras. We go into the Lenten season, 40 days, which represents what? Come on now, talk back to me, these 40 days and 40 nights. Many of you are fasting, or you fasted before. During this season, you remove something from your life. Now, if you worked with me in the feminine alchemy, I teach you how to add some things instead of remove some things so that you don't have deprivation consciousness. Because many of us still, in our relationship to God, the divine, even in our metaphysical such a muchness, we oftentimes still have a deprivation relationship with the desires of our heart, and we think that doing the work of the feminine is an alternative study. Well, let's look at the alternatives for you, because it's good to have options. First of all, Easter is known by many other names. It comes from many names. Now, just like we asked the question, why is it that the calendar was changed? From the natural cycle of things. When things are blooming, you are blooming. Why is it that in a religion that tells you don't listen to astrology, who tells you that that's pagan, to tells you that that's witchcraft, to tell you that don't do this, but you see other symbolic practices of it? I love this particular season because it's the one that's so mystical, even to me, more than Christmas, which represents the festival of lights. So here we have Easter in its rich associations with many things that we've been told not to look at. First of all, we have the vernal equinox or the spring equinox, right? The arrival and the awakening of nature around us. This is a very fertile season. It represents fertility. So the first thing, why is it that we have Easter bunnies? Well, let's deal with the name first. Easter, also known through Ostara. If you know how to spell this, put it in the comments for those who are watching. Ostara, O-S-T-A-R, Ostara, or Esther. It brings us to a Saxon goddess, but we can't stop at the Saxon goddess because many of the Saxons, which Anglo-Saxons and the Greek and the Celtic, got their rituals from ancient Egypt, which takes us to Isis. Come on now, y'all still with me? Y'all being mighty quiet. What you doing? Taking notes? Take them in the comments so that somebody else can see it. But she is the goddess of dawn and spring. Now, I'm gonna give you a little game. How many of you were born in springtime? How many of you were born? I'm born in springtime, so it's natural for me to have a relationship with springtime because anytime before, around your birthday, 40 days before, 40 days after, it has a meaning. I'm going to show you the meaning in the workshop and how you can use it. Ostara was a fertility goddess, bringing in the end of winter, with the days brighter and growing longer after the vernal equinox. Ostara represents a renewed passion for life. Come on, spring babies. Talk to me. I know it's more than just Sarah, who's the spring baby in here. And then here we go to Easter eggs and Easter bunnies featured in the festivals of Ostara. And then we go further to Ishtar. That's another derivative of Easter, Ishtar, or Inanna. Have y'all heard these goddess names? Inanna. And all of them represent the springtime. In different cultures, it's called by different names. How many of you are cultural people and you sit down and you talk to other people who look like you, who practice a little different, and you say, oh, well, where I'm from, we call it this. And that could be from north to south right here in the United States. But when you sit down with someone who's Jamaican, the other day, someone who was Haitian was doing my hair and we were talking about turkey. And she said, you know how you Black Americans don't like the head on a fish? She said, us Haitians don't like to see a whole turkey. We chop our turkey up. How many of you have been engaged in conversations like that, or you go and eat in other cultures and it's served to you differently? We have been so stripped of our awareness of certain things that when we see someone doing something different, we judge it. But the archetypes are the same, but they're called by different names. Okay, so now we have eggs, which is obvious about fertility because you, sis, it's right in front of your face. You got eggs. You were born with your eggs inside of you. You got eggs. Who has eggs? This is about procreation, right? New growth. And not only that, the eggs are celebrated with colors. It's a festival. Now, some of you all know this. The festival at one time was the time where the goddesses, the women, selected their mate, who they were going to mate with based off of what they wanted to manifest. I'll say that again. That's called progeny. When the woman does the selection based off of what she wants to see manifested in her lineage. Many of us have not been taught that, or we've gotten so far away from it from generation after generation. We've become so such a much that we talk about having children out of wedlock. Well, these people were not necessarily husband and wife when she chose a mate. She might have been practicing a form of polygamy, which is really, there's different names of polygamy is when you have more than one wife, and but polyandry. And so that type of thing. This is not new to the ancient woman, the high priestess. Not new. She selected, she chose. And this is where you get the rituals of love making. Why? How did she use it? Now, am I saying that you have to go and do this literally, because many of us have become too literal? But this for you who are business owners, this for you who are leaders, this for you who have advanced in your ancestral work and getting your business in order, whether it be living wills, whether it be investments, family banking. You too can use this second quarter to birth something new and different. This is the rebirth season. Come on now, in the comments, work with me. This is, somebody just get that in your spirit. This is the rebirth season. And so this is no surprise that the eggs represent new life, and that they are dyed and they're decorated, and that it represents folklore, what many songs were sang around these eggs. Many of the stories were told. And then we have chocolate and marshmallows, and the sweetness of life is represented here as well. And so why is the food now associated with the religion? How many of you all have a ritual of what you cook, or what your grandmother cooked for Easter? Why is ham traditionally associated with Easter? Some say it's a Christian meat, and so it evolved into that, because in Judaism and Islam, you don't eat pork. How did this is where we start disassociating, right? But the point is, animals were slaughtered. They were involved. Now, there's a piece in the clip where I show you that even in American Gods, I think I have the right clip that shows you that there were women who wanted to bring about a certain thing. So they had to sacrifice an animal, and they laid the animal out in the fields. And some of you who do certain practices, you'll understand what that meant. But basically, you have to be careful with this, because you can take on certain characteristics of whatever it is that you're eating. So basically, it represents the feast after the fast. You fasted for 40 days. You're coming into this holy week to celebrate the feast. That's really what we go back to, the feast. This is the time also where your crop, your soil is ready to receive seeds, to be planted, to yield crops through summer and into fall. So here is when we look at the springtime and Ostara and Nana and Isis and all of the things that has been repositioned. Why has she been hidden? Why have you been hidden? It's time for you to be more visible in your work, in your calling, in your contribution. And you can choose that by looking at the archetypes that have kept you hidden, the beliefs that are attached to archetypes that you think that you are over. You think that you have, I keep on using this word such much. I got that word from my beloved Baba, Pastor Willie F. Wilson, who talks about such a muchness so much, because sometimes we become educated fools, and our educated foolness has us so such a much about things that bring us, that ground us and bring us into a consciousness, particularly of the feminine, that's ready to not only receive, but to hold on to the life of what you are being called to do. Okay? Ishtar is the goddess of romance and procreation, but check this out. She is also the goddess of war. Everybody loves Oshun, but you don't understand that just because the goddesses that govern the femininity and the sweetness and the fertility and the abundance, you don't play with them. Our waters on the earth right now are being played with. If we just take it to nature and see how out of order we are, what do you think nature, the Quran says that, and I think the Bible has a verse in it that talks about the rocks will cry out. When we talk about Aquarius, Pluto, Pluto moving into Aquarius and what that means right now for this season. And we see protests happening in France. We see protests happening in Africa. We see the money right now being at a critical point. And some of you all thought that when I was saying last year that we need to prepare to barter services, when I said last year we need to learn how to sew again, when I said 2 years before that and a year before that about getting our entrepreneurship mindset together so that we are not responding in crises. When your spiritual discernment, when your third eye is open, you will be able to see things. But can you trust what you see, or do you get distracted by the woe is me and the doom and the gloom? Because it's coming. It's here. What are we going to do about it? What's next? If you have an awfulizing relationship based in shame and guilt and doubt that often comes from the very religions that tell you not to study yourself, you will have that when it comes to your money, when it comes to your relationship with money, your results with money, when it comes to your relationship with business. When it's always going to be something more required of you if you are the one, the leader, the visionary, if you are the one who was once the black sheep. You got codes inside of you your family need activated. You cannot afford to conform and not make any waves. Well, so when we talk about Oshun and we talk about Yemoyah, they make waves, honey. They make waves. Okay, I was talking about how Ishtar is also the goddess of war too in ancient Babylon. And we're in Babylon right now. And one of the great mother goddess stories talks about her descent into the underworld and the resurrection that follows. Many of us are still reluctant to go into the underworld of our money blocks, the underworld of why we are still single, but you really want to be in a relationship. Why is it that you have communication challenges with women? Why is it that you end up being the one holding the bag and nobody takes care of you or respond? That's the underworld. The mythology represents the life oftentimes that you're living, just like we're looking at American Gods and the decode is happening. Many of us had to go into an underworld of our lives because we were called to pull somebody else out of their underworld. Somebody might have pulled you out of your underworld. This is the resurrection season. And every time it comes around, you get to ask yourself, do I like where I am, and am I excited about where I'm going? Are y'all with me? This annual celebration is also called the Day of Joy. Easter feels a little bit, Christmas is based off of one thing. And now how did we get here? Now, last week we were talking about the sacred whore and the virgin goddess. And we went into Mary Magdalene and Mary. But we see this play out again. Because before he was met at the tomb and witnessed by a woman, according to the story, whether it's mythological or not, a stone had to be removed. What stone has to be removed from your mindset, from your investments? What stone needs to be removed in your family in order for if the banks collapse, you can do family banking? Who is the accountant in your family? Oh, you said, well, I can't have those conversations with my family. Well, that means you have some work to do to shift that. And you don't have to have a conversation with them in order for it to begin to shift. You could be the only one living in your family line and still do a level of this ancient work that still shifts your reality right here on earth. So when we talk about eggs and we talk about bunnies and we talk about sensuality and sexuality we dispelled the myth of the Virgin Mary already. There's so many ways right now for you to still celebrate this opportunity, because Pluto shifting into Aquarius represents this liberation season. But before liberation, there will appear to be chaos. And many of us may not be focused right now on the liberation because of worry and anxiety around this season. So I'm going to close out with this clip, catch some of your comments, because this is a strong, fertile time. I hope that I've laid out enough clues, because success leaves clues. And if you think that the high priest, from the Pope to the president of the various countries, not just the United States, do not consult this level of archetypes, blueprinting, guidance for the season, then you really are living in a false reality. Not only do they have executive coaches and boards and experts on boards for their subject matter, they have advisors. This is no accident where we are. We've been talking about money and the history of money, and really it's not money, it's fiat. What is fiat? Fiat is fake currency. And we've been talking about you being the money. And I will be honest with you, when I only thought about these things from the metaphysical, it stayed lofty. Yeah, I got it. Oh, I am the money, my own natural energy yield. But I didn't understand how that shows up in the very laws that are governing fiat, fake currency, based off of a decision of a president to stop backing the notes by silver and gold. So I do encourage, if you are interested in making some real true moves and you want to invest in silver, I have a link for you, an info link. If you are interested in setting up other investments, if I can't do it, I can give you some resources. If you want to just take your money out the bank and put it under the pillow, that's up to you. But we're about to shift to a digital currency. That means a lot is about to shift. This is about you getting, this divine design is about you getting yourself in position to prosper so that you can use your gifts in service to your divine, your communication, your coins, your community. So I want to, before I go, let me catch a few of your comments. For those of you said, wow, thank you for explaining the reason for the feast. Yes, my pleasure. Going to church to make your mother happy. Yep, that's definitely a contract. Thank you for somebody who affirmed that this is rebirth season. It really is rebirth season. But are you claiming the rebirth season for yourself? You know, it says we are going through this very thing right now. My God, spirit is coming through you today. So much truth and light. My pleasure to be used in this way. This is very confirming and provide a deeper understanding of the season that I am in. We are in, absolutely. We are in a big shift season. Pay attention to get your news, go on YouTube. Even though all these social platforms are being edited, do not just get your information through mainstream. That's why they want to shut down TikTok, is because they don't want you to communicate with other people who have other information, right? So I want to show you this as well. You know, I want to show you more, okay, just to close out on American Gods, okay? And I want to invite you, grab the early bird. Ask me how you can use that $50 coupon towards the tuition, or use the to-pay. It's a working session, not for me just to talk to you. You will also get a reading and a guide. And let me say this real quick. I probably should have cued this. And if I can, I will. Y'all remember that show we did with the 4 women on Fix My Life? I'm going to see if I can find that. We did strong archetypal work on that in those scenes. Those women have now manifested husbands, advances in their career. Why? Because women who are already leading ladies in some way, it does not take a lot for you. This is not for the person who's just beginning. This is for people who've been around this community, these conversations. You may be a juicy butterfly and all sensual and turned on, but have you used your unique divine design? I'm telling you, when I started using it, I stopped trying to sell like other coaches. I stopped trying to be all on social media, because I'm a minister of spiritual consciousness. I'm called to this work to do not just be a coach. This is I answer to something else higher. So when I started shifting and stopped trying to use the cookie cutter approach, 1 year, in fact, you all will get a chance to experience this again, where I'm fully in my body. When I returned from Costa Rica, I almost got put right back on survival mode with the rest of you. And I had invested in a high earning coach. A lot of you all have invested in her. You know her. I will not say her name, but I really believed in, because she was doing it, I could use her formula, but she wasn't me. We don't even have the same archetype. And when I tried to use her formula, my body broke down. I had the worst asthma attack of my adult life, so much so that my sister was about to take me to the hospital, make me go to the hospital, because I could barely breathe. But I was still a new entrepreneur with old programs. And I believed in, if I'm asking people to invest, then I also demonstrate investing. So I did that. And I can be very literal. And I was trying to follow the formula to the T, because I wanted the success that she promised. I hurt myself. And it took me years to understand that I hurt myself. I could tell the entrepreneurs, because we're going to have a VIP session just for the entrepreneurs. I'll tell you more about how I hurt myself, but how it helped me at a certain point when I did this type of work to dive into and decode why I was using the martyr archetype still in my business, and how they don't mix. Because if you have the martyr working as a business owner or as a family leader, you will always get hurt, and you will always be reluctant to lead, and you will always think that you've done something wrong. You see, this is why it's not just a woo-woo. This investment is designed to give you an instant return on your investment. And when I got clear, I started to do something I built a 7-day boot camp around, and that is make money with my eyes closed. And you can too. Or You may be designed to be the one who's out there in front. But what if you're not? Or what if there's a conflict between one aspect of your design and another aspect of your design? Has anybody given you tools to be able to go into your yin and your yang flow? I want to give them to you. I want to supply you with them because that's what I needed. And a lot of these cookie cutter business coaches, teachers, spiritualists are not offering that. You got the spiritual people over here who don't want to pay attention to anything until it happens. You got the people over here that's running and chasing the bag, and all they're paying attention to is the next hit, the next bag, the next I forgot, the next hustle, the next. And there's some of you all who know that there is a balance, and you want to find it because you are still looking to be a wife, to be present with your children, to homeschool your children. You want to be available to other things in your life instead of hustling. There have been times in my life where I would sit down at my computer before day in the morning and not get up until can't see at night. Wasn't in a slave, but I still had I wasn't in I wasn't in the fields, but I still had a slave mentality because I had been conditioned by a worker archetype. Do you all see? Do you all see why this is these weeks that we are spending is a detailed deep dive just to move out of your way, your exceptions, instead of bargaining for what it is that you need and you say you want and you write to me about, that you can stand up and get crunk. Stand up and become the drum major of the call on your life. Some of you, it took you years to even get here to hear me because your judgment was she is anti this, or she's anti-God, what is she teaching over there? So many of you in the community have told me how you listen, but you wouldn't do nothing, won't like a post, won't comment, what is that? I've done it too before. When I first started studying Tantra, I did it in secret because I didn't want to be labeled as hoish. But now I know how to use all of well, not all of them. I'm still working with some of them because trust me, since I've been initiated and since in various initiations, you wake up other aspects of yourself. And what a blessing to have an elder. What a blessing to have a mentor. Because more, that's where I ended this clip. More is required of thee. If I had just tried to do DIY everything, you can't DIY these initiations. I've been in plant medicine ceremonies where people are saying, they are the shaman. They're young as all get out, hadn't lived life, but they're doing plant medicine ceremonies. But then when something comes up in the ceremony and you hadn't been trained to know how to handle it and respond to it, you might tell the person something damaging. Come on now. Some of you all say, oh, I do Oshun rituals all the time. I know I'm an Oshun. You don't know nothing. You don't even know that right now Oshun asked for us to stop going and putting stuff in her waters. Come on now. Okay, I'm getting off topic. Am I getting off topic, or am I walking down somebody's street? Hidden power of feminine archetypes in you is what we've been talking about. So let me close this out with this piece right here where let me go back. Let me see. Present, share screen. Okay. All right. Go right back to where we were, where the goddess was speaking to the little brother, little black boy Joy. Okay. No accident there. I'm going to back it up because I want you to hear what she says again, because this is where we picked up about Easter and you.
Saying, "We have waited for you and much is required of you." The actress on this cover is Bridget Ogundipe. I hope I said that right. And she is playing the Orisha Yemoja, also known as Yemonja or Yemaya in some countries. Yemoja is a goddess of water, rivers, and especially the Ogun River in Nigeria. So perhaps it's not a coincidence that the actress actually has Ogun in her name. Ogun is also another Orisha who I'll get to if we see him. But on this cover, you can see it says beautiful Nigeria, which is one of the major countries that the Yoruba people are in, although they are in a number of West African countries. The Orishas seem to be trying to get through to Shadow, although before he can really connect with Yemoja and the other Orishas, he's chased by the bison or buffalo, the representation of the American land, and basically separated from them, which might have a sort of metaphorical meaning. America is pulling him away from his African ancestry right now.
Okay, he says America is pulling him from his African ancestry, but the truth of the buffalo is also the natives, the indigenous, those of us who were already here. And of course, this particular narrator would want to redirect us to Africa, but this is also represented by the natives. Now I could go more into what the ram represents in the Orisha tradition or the buffalo, but let's just keep it copacetic.
Now, then we cut to New York, where Bilquis is now in her new fancy pad. And at first, she appears to be doing some kind of role playing with this guy who's dressed as tech assistants. But when he touches her, she says there's no touching allowed. At which point, he gets very angry and reveals that he's the head of the largest IT company in the world. He says his name is William Huntington Sanders, likely a reference to William Huntington Russell, the founder of Skull and Bones at Yale. And he likely owns Bilquis's app, Sheba. But he's not satisfied with the arrangement the way it is. Bilquis seemingly gives in to his advances, but she actually has other motives. She baits him into her vagina-verse, where he is another willing sacrifice to the goddess Bilquis. Afterward,
he says in her vagina verse. This is again what the patriarchy fears, is that if you have been demonized as Eve from the beginning, then now you look at something like this and you hear vagina verse and she has other plans for them, and the woman's sensuality becomes demonized. But let me continue.
Appears sick, so it appears something is not right with her usual method of worship. Shadow gets an invite to a Kolaida festival celebration in Chicago from Zaraya Polnochnoya, the Midnight Star. Kolaida is an ancient Slavic winter solstice festival, and apparently this one is in honor of Zaraya Verchernaya, the evening star, who was shot and killed in the last season. The Midnight Star says we must speak of your head and your heart. Of course, his head is promised to Chernobog to hit with his hammer from the first season, but regardless, Shadow tries to figure out how to get to Chicago, and as he's on his way to town, he gets picked up by Hinzelman, who gives him a quick lesson on Lakeside's history, the benefactor Lester Hamilton and its Norse or Germanic roots, as well as its famous pasties, which is a traditional English food, especially associated with Cornwall, as Hinzelman says.
Brought it over here from Cornwall.
And actually, in some folklore, pasties are used as offerings to Cornish fairies. Also in the background, a cover of the song Always Something There to Remind Me by Naked Eyes plays, which for people that have read the book, I think is a reference to the lake. There's something going on with the lake, and it's always there in view of the town. While he's in the store with Hinzelman to get a jacket, Shadow runs into Allison McGovern, who he met when he first arrived in Lakeside, but later on in the episode, Allison will go missing. Hinzelman pressures Shadow into betting on the clunker, which is the car that will eventually drop into the lake. People bet on when exactly it will do that, and some kind of freeze.
Okay, notice that said March 23rd. That is typically around the time of the vernal equinox or spring equinox, even though he's not necessarily highlighting it in his breakdown.
Freezing power highlights March 23rd from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m., so that's what Shadow bets on. From there, we cut to the dentist's office of Dr. Tyrell, who we soon find out is the Norse god Tyr. He's a god of war as well as justice, but in the modern world, he has taken the role of a dentist, perhaps because he can collect children's teeth. In Old Norse superstition, it was thought that children's teeth were lucky in battle, and after all, he is a war god. Some suspect the tradition of the tooth fairy goes back to the Old Norse tradition of Tanfei or tooth fee. So in a weird way, maybe Tyr is a kind of tooth fairy? Okay, not really. He's not the tooth fairy in the same way Odin is not Santa Claus, but it is an interesting detail. Wednesday meets up with Tuesday, Tyr, and goes into his office where he has a number of artifacts, including the sculpted head of Fenrir the wolf, the creature that bites off his hand in Norse mythology. In Norse mythology, it's his right hand, but here we can see that actually his left hand is missing. He has a prosthetic there. Wednesday says, when was the first time our soldiers carried our totems into battle, referring to the Fenrir head? And Tyr says, when Gudfred effed up that Frankish business, definitely referring to the Danish King Gudfred and his conflict with the Carolingian Empire, or the Frankish Empire. He also says the last time it was the Battle of Yorktown, when they posed as Hessian Jaegers, or German infantry in the British Army. Of course, the British lost the Battle of Yorktown to George Washington and the Continental Army, and Tyr says they abandoned the Hessians and joined Washington.
Half the art of war is knowing when to switch sides.
Wednesday then turns away this sculpture of a bird. I'm not sure what this bird is a reference to, but it might be a reference to the Jotun Reisfilgur, which takes the form of a giant eagle and whose wings create the wind, very much like a thunderbird, or possibly it's one of the three roosters that crows at the beginning of Ragnarok. Possibly Wednesday turns it away because he doesn't want to face Ragnarok just yet. Then Wednesday notices a Happy Solstice card from Demeter, the Greek goddess of the harvest, addressed to Dr. Tyrell. And of course he steals it so he can get Demeter's address. He also didn't receive an invitation to the Kaleida Festival in Chicago, so Tyr unknowingly lets him know where that is as well. Wednesday also gets a financial donation from Tyr, and before he leaves, Tyr addresses him in Old Norse.
We switched to Liberty.
Okay, I'm going to stop it here just because I think you get the point. If you have any questions, please drop them in the comment section now, because this is, I know that some of the pieces in American God veer off of the whole theme around Easter, but not really, because of course, when you're doing film, you write it for effect, for drama, for all of this, right? And so, but there are so many gems being dropped. Even, for instance, they talked about the Mississippi being called the Great River in the very beginning. And you all know that last year I spent a large time talking about us as the Mississippian people and that culture around us being miscategorized, that we didn't all come here on ships. That's in there. The indigenous piece is in there as well. But when you go, but it's tracking several different cultures and timelines. And remember, it's almost like when you are a global leader or a world leader, you can't just think about one culture. You have to communicate a film to various audiences, and you can catch pieces that are for you. Now, I'm not advertising for American Gods, but I will say you are they. And those powers are hidden inside of you when you wake up to that without apology, to be able to say that, to be able to claim that. You are the American Gods that this is talking about. Wednesday, why is it Wednesday meets Tuesday? Did you all catch that? Wednesday, well, what does Wednesday represent? What does Tuesday represent? So there's so much to talk about here. All right, so thank you all so much today. I hope that you see at the very least that there is more to this. I am inviting you to explore your divine design, the discovering your feminine source codes, so that you can leverage it for the season that we are in, to design your love, sex, and money vision. And I'm going to close with some of your comments. Yes. Okay. Yes, there is a link. The link is in the comments section for the weekend. It is in the comment section of every Wednesday. Just go and click on the link below in the description box, and you can go right to the workshop. Before you register, let me send you the coupon code. I think you might have already done it, so that you can drop that coupon code in and get the $50 off. So if you didn't get that, it's still in our Rebirth Woman chat. I'll also drop it in the tribe again, but or pin it. I think it's also pinned in the chat, so that you can first do what it asks, complete the survey, so that you can get the code, the $50 code to register. Okay. I want to make sure everybody gets the code, because once you go in and do it on your own, I can't go back and give it to you. Remember, it comes with a miniature reading and an assessment and all of that. And then we go to work on the 22nd of April. Okay. All right. Thank you so much for your comments. She said, I booked my seat this weekend. Yes, you did. You got your seat. Welcome to the training. Yes. Those of you who are going through this, don't stop there. Let me know how I can be of assistance to you. And yes, I have been talking about the waters, because Yemoya is my mother, my Farefun Yemoya. And of course, I work with all of the goddess energies. I have to. That's what Juicy is built on. So yes, okay, if you completed the survey, I just need to send you the code. Anybody who completed the survey and you are signing up, anyone who it was already registered in the Queen's piece, remember, do not go to the public link. There's another link for you, those who were already in the mastermind. If you go ahead of the instructions that I gave you, I am not going to go back into the system to try to refund and all of that stuff. Those of you who are in the tribe, you have the $50 coupon. If you are doing the VIP for the business, that's just straight ahead, and you can go to the link in the description box. Again, I know that this is many of the things you've heard in one way or another before, but don't treat it like something you already know. I invite you to explore what you don't know that you don't know, to get your business in order for the season that we are in. This is a very potent time, and you are so divine in this sequence and order of things that it's manifesting. I want to tell y'all some more stories of how quickly certain things are manifesting as quick as I say it. So don't say you can't. Don't say you don't know. Say yes to yourself and watch what needs to show up. I love you, and there's nothing you can do about it. Have a wonderful day.